We are Muskegon County at Work, spotlighting workers of local governments throughout our county, revealing what it takes to make our communities comfortable and safe. Hello, everyone. Your host here, DJ Hilson, for yet another episode, a segment, if you will, on Muskegon County Municipalities at Work, where we get to dive into not only county but local municipal government and really get a sense as to what makes that municipality or our county work. And hopefully that you gain some inside knowledge that you didn't know, or maybe that you took advantage of and had no idea that there are actual folks behind what makes it work. Today, I have the pleasure of having as my guest, Dan Vanderkooi. Hello, sir.
Good morning, DJ.
I chuckle because we had a little off-air discussion about your last name, whether it's Kooi or Cooey. I went with the below-bridge pronunciation of Kooi. Hope you don't mind.
No, they say in the Netherlands it's from the cage or from the cow, but Vanderkooi, a good Dutch name, yeah.
Good Dutch name.
Yeah,
good Dutch name. Well, welcome. What I always like to do with my guests is, introduce yourself a little bit, talk about who you are, what you do, sort of a biography, if you will.
Sure. Well, I am the new Fire Marshal with the City of Norton Shores. 4 months now. I started this position in December. Some people say congratulations. Other people say I'm sorry. I started in the fire service in 1997, part-time, and worked my way up, really driving the big red truck and being that person that responded on the calls and put fire out to where I'm at today. I've had kind of a unique path. I've had a decade in broadcast news. I was a news photojournalist for the Fox affiliate station in Grand Rapids. I did that. With the City of Norton Shores, I was their ordinance enforcement officer for a while, doing code enforcement. That's a unique position in itself. And then media coordinator for the City of Norton Shores. And then currently today as Fire Marshal.
So what was it? I mean, were you sort of voluntold or did you volunteer? And because, certainly we'll get into what a fire marshal does, but it's kind of an important deal. And it does, in some respects, fit the career path you took. Was this something that you had desired to do?
I did not wake up one morning and go, I think I'm going to be the fire marshal today. It was an opportunity that presented itself. And of course, I interviewed and was selected by the committee as the new fire marshal. Just timing, I think, is a big part of that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about now, as you indicated, a lot of your career with Norton Shores was actual firefighter, jump in the truck, go to the fire, put the fire out kind of thing. And I think when people think about firefighters, that's the first thing that comes to their brain, right? Talk a little bit about what a fire marshal does, because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, most departments, if not all departments, not only here in Muskegon County, but across the nation, have a fire marshal as part of their crew.
Sure. The fire marshal or fire inspector is responsible for keeping the public safe in those public areas that, you go to the store. If there's a fire, an incident there, you want to know that the exits work, the fire alarm works, that you're going to be notified of an emergency. The fire lanes aren't blocked. A lot of things that we do are kind of behind the scenes that nobody is really aware of until they have a bad day.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, if people go to venues, churches or halls or even restaurants and bars, when you see on the wall capacity so many people, I bet you folks don't recognize that that's actually fire marshal telling them what they could do.
It's always fun to watch the presidential debates and rallies, DJ, when they hit that point of capacity and they say, well, we had to cut the line off and turn people away by order of the fire marshal. And wow, that's kind of a lot of responsibility that they have. But it is that occupancy and making sure that you're not over capacity of certain areas and, keep people safe.
Yeah, because ultimately, like you said, if something bad happens in a large area and you're over capacity, I mean, what's the potential ramification of that?
We unfortunately in the fire marshal world, our lessons are learned by tragedy. Whether that's the ghost ship fire in California, the other historical ones would be the Station nightclub fire, loss of life there. I don't know if you remember that one particular. So it's the tragedies that we face, loss of life. They say the fire code was kind of written, on behalf of those who have lost their lives, and so really it's life safety.
Now, you mentioned the fire code. State of Michigan. Is there a state fire code that you have to enforce, as well as, I'll say, local? Are there offshoots or local fire codes that are sort of, I'll say, the brother or sister of the state fire code?
Sure. So the city of Norton Shores, we have adopted the 2015 IFC, or International Fire Code, and then we also adopt local ordinances, part of that fire code. So that's kind of another layer of that. There's different codes. There's also the NFPA one, which we have not adopted, but that gives us a standpoint and standards to have that benchmark of what we enforce.
What can, I mean, and I don't need you to recite the entire code. We won't do that.
I cannot recite the entire code.
But, maybe give a couple examples of what's contained in that code that is part of what you do on a daily basis.
Sure. So, one thing that comes to mind would be emergency lighting. The emergency lighting over exit signs and that, we have a requirement for a 90-minute test, meaning that if a business loses power, that those lights will stay on for at least 90 minutes. And that is not only to allow for the people inside, the public, to safely exit the building, but also it allows firefighters to get in and have light, and it's measured under certain foot candles. And there's, not going to get into the weeds with code and that, but that's just one aspect of the fire code.
Again, something that people see on a daily basis, and yet don't appreciate that it's not just a sign that's put up. There's actually some teeth behind what has to happen, what can't happen, all those things that go into keeping, as we go back to keeping people safe.
Exiting fire lanes, when people plow in the winter, keeping that fire lane open. It's kind of like not blocking your fire hydrant in the winter. It's there for a purpose, and you hope you have access to it when you need it.
So, when people go to a big box store or a big box grocery store, and they see that sort of that yellow painted lane and the no parking sign, no standing. I mean, that's not just there for decoration.
No, it's not. Everything. The unique thing, DJ, is everything is planned out ahead of time. When that building is designed, even the fire extinguishers that are on the wall are placed and designed in that facility for the types of hazards that are there. For example, if you're at a building that has a computer server room or a power center, you're not going to have a water extinguisher outside that area because, as we know, we don't want to put water on electrical. So it would have a different extinguisher in that area designed for that if there was a fire. Now,
speaking of, let's talk about sprinkling systems and fire extinguishers. Is there a expiration or life to both? I mean, fire extinguishing sprinkling systems as well as fire extinguishers? And what role does the fire marshal play in that?
Sure. Well, as with many things, fire extinguishers have an expiration date. They have to be tested. And depending upon the fire suppression system, that also has to be tested and maintained, depending upon what type it is. So typically it's I believe a 5 or 10 year on the extinguishers, but
and that's, I'm assuming, is most of your daily routine dealing with commercial, or do you also deal with residential?
so most of our inspections that we deal with are in the public world, any building that's open to the public. So even an apartment complex, there are certain public areas, the hallways, the common areas, laundry. We're not coming into someone's apartment and doing an inspection there. However, they may have a system in place, alarm and strobe and fire suppression system that we need to make sure it's maintained and it's going to work properly should the need arise.
So what does a day look like for you? A typical day. We won't get into the extraordinary things that pop up, but a typical day.
Yeah, boy, every day is different, of course. Some days it starts with plan reviews where we're getting new buildings in the city, or someone wants to make a change to an existing building. So we review the plans and make sure that it's accessible. We want to make sure that a fire truck can have access to that building, that our fire hoses can reach around that building, and to see if it requires fire suppression, monitoring, all of those things, what hazard it is and what's around it.
So ultimately, it sounds like not only are you inspecting already existing structures, but you're involved in the initial planning as well. Because, again, I'm assuming that there are certain codes when it comes to fire suppression that have to be met before that building can be kind of signed off and said, okay, you're good to go.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we want to design safe cities and have safe buildings for not only the general public but our firefighters. And that's a cool thing is having that background and experience of being on the truck. I can say the fire marshals that have come before me have the best interest of the firefighters in mind, because there are buildings that if they catch fire have the potential to injure or kill firefighters severely.
Well, I mean, it's a nice, your prior experience, I'm sure, is paying dividends in your new role, right? Because you can certainly take it from the perspective of this is what the code is recommending, but I also need to put in perspective when the guys and gals are coming in to put a fire out, what hazards are going to be or can be avoided.
Sure, absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but obviously, is there an investigative arm to the fire marshal as well?
A little bit, because I'm new. We have a fire inspector, Joe Munson. The team that I have, and it's basically we have the fire inspector and the fire marshal and our administrative assistant, and that's our little team. We have the office at City Hall and fire prevention, and it's amazing the amount of work that we can do with just the three of us. I'd like to have about 2 more fire inspectors and that, but that's it. That's just the way it goes, right?
I got to believe that, again, given the amount of development that is happening in Norton Shores, as well as the existing structures that are there, you don't get a chance to clock watch too much during the day.
No, I stay pretty busy.
Yeah, I can imagine. What are some of the challenges that I know you're somewhat new, but what are some of the challenges that you've experienced thus far in your role as fire marshal?
I think one of the challenges is getting buy-in by the general public, and maybe it's that builder or that business owner that thinks you're going to come in and shut them down. And that's not at all what our role is. But we do require and want to make sure that things are being done safe. We've had some interesting things over the years that we've been very fortunate that there wasn't an event. People try and do things cost effectively on the cheap, so you might try and sidestep something and it's done improperly, or it might just be because you don't know, and it's a lot of it is maybe sometimes housekeeping. You want to make sure that exit doors aren't blocked, and we always do a little safety inspection around the holiday time at our big box stores, so that when they get a lot of shipments of flat screen TVs and all of the other items that people want to purchase, those have to be unboxed and put somewhere. And sometimes they can kind of creep into that exit path area. So we try and work with our merchants and our businesses during those times, especially, to make sure that they're being mindful of, it's not just a summertime, but when there's boxes and things, you have stock that piles up. You still have to maintain your path of egress.
I'm curious that you mentioned summertime, and what comes to my mind always are events. And certainly the city of Norton Shores does have events, outdoor events, and events that happen within the confines of the city. And what role does the fire marshal play in those events?
Sure. Well, when you mention events, I think of the term we use is membrane structures, and in simpler terms, it's a tent. And so you may have a tent, whether it's a firework tent or you're doing a sidewalk sale and you want to have a tent and sell your wares under the big top. That has to be fire rated. It's got to have fire extinguishers and other required things that have to be met. And again, that's one of those things that you may not think about or know of, but it's still a structure that has the potential of catching fire. And so that's why we ask for the fire rating and other documentation on that.
So I'm assuming you get alerted to these things when there's a permit process that's required by the city, which makes sense. It alerts yourself and other important agencies that have to make sure that things are on the up and up. And so, I mean, are you busier in the spring and summer months versus the winter, or does it really matter?
I'm not sure if it matters. I think that each individual occupation has their certain high times. It ebbs and flows. It's a different, and I would say, because I'm new to this role, I haven't experienced the summertime. So, again, it's trying to maintain safety every 365, 24/7. But it is nice not having the 3 foot of snow and making sure your fire hydrants are clear and your fire lanes are open. At least we don't have the snow to worry about.
So I can't let you go without having you talk about the importance of smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. This will be a little bit more in the residential, but I want folks to understand and appreciate how important it is to not only have them, but also regularly maintain them.
So there's different types of fire alarms, and they also have an expiration date. Manufacturer recommends replacing your smoke alarm after 10 years. What we've seen in the technology, the advances in technology, are the lithium-ion batteries. So it's a sealed unit. Really, the days of putting the 9-volt battery in the smoke alarm and having to change it every year when you change your clock, change your battery, that lithium-ion battery, that 10 years, you don't get to remove that battery. It's sealed. So that's been a big plus for us, is making sure that people are safe. Oftentimes, if they would have a nuisance alarm, you're got that pizza in the oven and you set the smoke alarm off, well, you either remove the battery or take the alarm down. We always recommend, now they have a hush button. So you push the hush button to silence that alarm for 2 minutes, and it gives people an opportunity to let the smoke out. And you're not removing that alarm and you're not taking the battery out. We're still being safe. But we've been fortunate in Norton Shores. We have a grant program through the state of Michigan, MI Prevention, to get smoke alarms. And if you are a resident of Norton Shores and you own your home, so not a rental, but if you own your home and need smoke alarms, you can call the fire department and get added to the list, and we will come out and install smoke alarms in your home.
It's a fantastic service.
And it's free.
That's fantastic. That's, again, it kind of gets rid of the no excuses, right? There should be no excuse because, again, in your years of service, I'm sure you have encountered where a smoke alarm has actually saved a life.
Correct. Yeah. And the stats, DJ, are currently for 2025 as of the 1st of March, there have been 25 fatalities in 22 fires. And we've always heard that it's not the fire that causes the death, it's the smoke, and that's just the unfortunate thing. It's preventable. Most fires are preventable.
Yeah, well, it's a really good reminder to take a minute or 10 minutes, walk around your house, test, make sure that you're within that 10-year limit. And if you're not, and you live in the city of Norton Shores, you're going to have a couple of guys and gals show up if you put yourself on the list and put a smoke alarm or two in your house.
And for other people that are watching, most of our departments in Muskegon County do participate in the program. So
there you go.
Call your local fire department, and we require a smoke alarm in each sleeping area, outside the sleeping areas, and one on every level of the home. So a standard home, you may need 5 alarms.
Yeah, it's really, really, really important for sure. Because I agree with you. It's not the fire necessarily, but that smoke, it doesn't take much.
And the CO alarm as well, carbon monoxide. That's the colorless, odorless, tasteless. They call it the silent killer. And we've had a family that in Norton Shores, one Christmas, that their whole family could have succumbed to carbon monoxide. And it was very fortunate that the way it turned out, everybody was able to be removed from the home and be okay.
Yeah, scary stuff sometimes. Well, Dan, thank you so much, not only for being here, but for your service to the Norton Shores community. Really, really appreciate it. And you take a mean picture, too, I've seen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that ends our segment for today. I hope the next time that you walk through a store or just happen to be casually in a parking lot area of a store, you recognize the importance of the fire lanes, and certainly look up in the sky and count the sprinklers, knowing that those sprinklers are going to make you safe in the event of something happening in that particular area. Thanks for joining. I look forward to our next conversation. As always, I have to thank the ingenuity of one Mike Vogus for this program.